Dear friends, this is a true story, told by the woman who lived it. I sat quietly at my small vanity table, gazing at my reflection in the mirror. Today was my 26th birthday. The face of the woman staring back at me still looked young, maybe even attractive, with big brown eyes and smooth skin. But behind that youthful face hid a soul exhausted by the monotony of everyday life. From behind the bedroom door, I could hear my daughter's cheerful laughter as she played. My husband was probably helping her get ready for breakfast in the small apartment living room. Just another ordinary morning in our cramped Seattle apartment. I sighed. 26 years old. Married, with a steady job and a sweet little girl. Everything looked perfect from the outside, a stable family, a caring husband, a lovely child. So why did I feel so empty inside? Outside, the city was waking up. The sound of cars and buses filled the streets as adults hurried to work and children rushed to school. I stepped into the living room. Tom was kneeling to tie Lily's shoelaces. When she saw me, she ran over, her big round eyes shining. "Mommy, come eat breakfast." I smiled and stroked her hair. "Do you remember what day it is today, sweetheart?" I teased. Lily pouted, thinking for a second, then beamed. "Yes. Daddy told me to sing happy birthday for you tonight." I glanced at Tom. He looked slightly embarrassed and smiled gently. "You ready for work yet?" he asked. "I got you some hot oatmeal and soy milk from the cafe downstairs." "Thank you," I said softly. "Maybe we can celebrate later tonight." Breakfast was simple, just a cup of soy milk and a small takeout box of oatmeal. Tom had probably hoped it would make me happy, but for some reason, I felt nothing. So this is my 26th birthday, I thought bitterly. Morning, a quick breakfast. Afternoon, a casual lunch with coworkers. Evening, a small cake from the bakery down the street, candles, and a quiet, happy birthday. It had been the same every year. After breakfast, Tom hurried Lily downstairs to drop her off at preschool. Before leaving, he turned to me and said, "I'll try to come home early tonight, okay? Lily and I will wait for you to blow out the candles." I forced a smile as I closed the door behind them. Their footsteps faded down the hallway, and the apartment fell silent again, just the ticking of the clock. My life, I realized, was as monotonous as that steady ticking. The sky was clear that morning, with sunlight spilling over the busy streets of Seattle. I rode my small car through familiar roads lined with coffee shops, where the smell of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries drifted in the air. It reminded me of my carefree college days when I used to sip coffee on the sidewalk without worrying about bills or deadlines. Marriage had pulled me into a web of responsibilities, taking care of my child, looking after my husband, going to work, coming home to cook, clean, and teach my daughter. Had I already grown old at 26? I felt like I had lived an entire lifetime within the confines of a tiny box. When I arrived at the office, a mid-sized American-Vietnamese joint company, the work environment buzzed with young, energetic employees. Just as I stepped through the door, my best friend Sophie waved her hand. "Hey, hurry up, you're late." I rushed to clock in. 8:01, damn. 1 minute late. I groaned, knowing it meant a small deduction from my salary at the end of the month. "Traffic jam again?" Sophie teased, then pulled me toward our desks. I had barely settled down when the entire office suddenly erupted in song, "Happy birthday to you." I froze in surprise. On my desk sat a small birthday cake with a single candle, already lit. Sophie grinned. "Happy birthday, sis. We decided to surprise you for being late." I blushed, waving my hands shyly, but deep down I was touched. Everyone gathered around, singing in both English and Vietnamese, clapping and laughing. I made a wish and blew out the candle. For a brief moment, I felt warmth, like I mattered. At least here, in the office, people cared about me. At home, it was different. As the morning celebration ended and everyone returned to their work, Sophie leaned over and whispered, "Let's grab lunch together. I'm thinking of pho or maybe some grilled pork, my treat for your birthday." "Sure," I smiled. "Why not?" Just then, the office phone on my desk rang. "Sales department, Anna speaking," I answered. "Anna, there's a man named John here to see you," Mary, the receptionist, said. "He's waiting in the lobby." My heart skipped a beat. "John? Why was he here?" "I'll be right down," I said quickly and hung up. Sophie raised an eyebrow. "Who's that?" "Oh, just a business partner," I replied vaguely. Then hurried toward the elevator, feeling strangely nervous. John was a foreign partner from one of our American clients, about 30. Tall, handsome, and effortlessly charming. We had met several times for work, and he always managed to make me laugh. He was polite, funny, and dangerously attractive. Lately, he had been texting me after work, at first about projects. Then gradually, little personal messages, "Good night. Hope you had a nice day." I hadn't exactly encouraged him. But I couldn't deny that his attention had become a warm spark in my dull life. When I stepped into the lobby, John was waiting, smiling brightly. "Happy birthday, Anna," he said in fluent English, handing me a bouquet of deep red roses. I froze. How did he even know it was my birthday? "Thank you," I murmured, feeling heat rush to my cheeks. The scent of roses filled the air, and for the first time that day, I truly felt noticed. "Are you free tonight?" he asked softly, eyes locked on mine. "I'd love to take you out for dinner, just the two of us." I hesitated. The invitation was tempting, but also dangerous. Tom and Lily were waiting at home. I'm not sure," I stammered. John smiled, a hint of disappointment flickering in his blue eyes. "Just dinner," he said gently. "You deserve to feel special on your birthday." His words sank deep into me. When was the last time someone made me feel special? Not just a wife or a mother, but me. After a long pause, I nodded. "Okay," I whispered. John's face lit up. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. As I walked back to the office, clutching the roses, my heart raced wildly. Sophie spotted me and gasped. "Oh my God, who are those from?" "Just a partner," I said quickly. She grinned mischievously. "Uh-huh. Sure. A partner who brings roses." I tried to laugh it off, but my cheeks burned. As I set the bouquet on my desk, I couldn't stop smiling. 26 red roses, one for each year of my life. And for the first time in a long while, I actually felt alive. "Hey, I'll have a small birthday dinner with some coworkers tonight, so don't wait up for me. You and Lily can have dinner first, okay?" The moment I hit send, guilt pricked my chest. It was the first time I had ever lied to my husband. But I tried to calm myself. "It's just this once," I thought. "Nothing serious. I'll make it up to him later." My phone buzzed a minute later. Tom's message read, "Sure, honey. Have fun with your friends. Come home early. Love you." I stared at the words "love you." How long had it been since we said that to each other? A lump rose in my throat. He still cared for me, he still loved me, and yet, why did I feel so distant? I bit my lip and forced myself to shake it off. Don't overthink. Just one night. At exactly 7 o'clock, I came down to the front of my office building. John was already waiting beside his sleek black Tesla. When I opened the car door, I caught the faint, intoxicating scent of his cologne. He turned to me with a soft smile. "You look absolutely beautiful tonight, Anna." My face warmed. The way he looked at me, it wasn't the polite glance of a coworker. It was the look of a man seeing a woman he truly desired. The car glided through the city, past downtown lights and quiet tree-lined streets. Outside, Seattle was glowing in shades of amber and blue as the sun dipped behind the horizon. John drove us to a rooftop French restaurant overlooking Lake Union. When we stepped out of the elevator, I gasped. The view was breathtaking, soft golden lights, candles flickering on every table, and live jazz playing gently in the background. It felt like I had stepped into a movie. John pulled out my chair with graceful ease. He was so naturally gentlemanly that a few guests turned their heads to look. "To you," he said, raising his glass of wine toward me, "and to your 26th birthday. May it be unforgettable." "Thank you," I murmured, clinking my glass against his. The red wine slid down my throat, sweet, smooth, and dangerously warm. The candlelight flickered across his face. His blue eyes glimmered, fixed on me. That gaze? It made me forget everything else. It had been so long since a man had looked at me like that, with desire, with admiration. Tom's eyes, once full of affection, had grown dull from work and exhaustion. But John's made me feel like a woman again. He refilled my glass and smiled. "You know," he said, "from the first time I met you, I admired how passionate and graceful you were. You're different, Anna. Beautiful and intelligent, a rare combination." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. No one had said things like that to me in years. Not since before I became someone's wife. As the night went on, we talked, laughed, and shared stories about college dreams, childhood memories, even silly office gossip. John listened intently, his hand sometimes brushing against mine, sending electric sparks up my arm. At one point, he picked up a small red rose from the vase on our table and leaned closer. "May you always stay as radiant as this rose," he whispered, then gently tucked it onto my dress near my heart. The tip of his finger brushed against my skin, just for a moment, but it felt like fire. My breath caught. He was so close I could feel his warmth. Then, standing up, he extended his hand. "Dance with me?" The soft jazz filled the air. I hesitated, then placed my hand in his. He led me to the wooden dance floor under the glow of string lights. His arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me just close enough. I could smell his cologne, clean, expensive, intoxicating. We swayed slowly, our bodies moving in rhythm. I lifted my gaze and found his eyes again, full of a tenderness that made my knees weak. "You're stunning," he murmured near my ear. His voice was low, velvety, dangerous. A shiver ran down my spine. When I stumbled slightly, he caught me, his strong arms steady around me. For a brief, dizzy second, the world disappeared. There was only his heartbeat against mine, and the music wrapping around us like a spell. He leaned closer, and I thought he would kiss me. But instead, he stopped, just inches away, his lips curving into a soft, knowing smile. It was a gesture of restraint, of respect. But it left me trembling. By the time we returned to our table, it was already past 10. As much as I didn't want the night to end, I knew I had to go home. "I should get back," I said quietly. John nodded, his eyes lingering on me with regret. "I'll drive you," he said. On the way back, the streets were nearly empty. Seattle's night air was cool and calm. When the car stopped briefly at a red light, John suddenly pulled over by a small toy store that was still open. "Wait here," he said and stepped out. A few minutes later, he returned with a small paper bag. "What's that?" I asked. He smiled. "A little something for your daughter, a doll. I figured she'd like it." My heart tightened. He had thought about Lily. About my child. He didn't need to. But he did. It was such a simple gesture, yet it made me want to cry. "Thank you," I whispered. He shrugged lightly. "I just didn't want your little angel to be sad that her mom came home late. Tell her it's from Uncle John." The word uncle stung, somehow both tender and cruel. How could he be so considerate, so perfect, so unlike my husband? When we reached my apartment building, he stepped out and opened my door like a gentleman. "Good night, Anna," he said softly. "And happy birthday again." Before I could respond, he lifted my hand and kissed it gently. It was just a polite Western farewell, but the touch sent waves through me. I smiled faintly, whispered "good night," and turned toward the entrance. As his car drove away, I stood there for a long moment, clutching the roses to my chest, my heart racing, my head spinning. It was 11:30 p.m. when I finally opened the door to our apartment. The lights were dim. Lily's voice was the first thing I heard. "Mommy, you're home." She ran to me, throwing her arms around my legs. I picked her up, kissed her cheek, and murmured, "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Mommy's late." Her little lips pouted. "Daddy and I waited for you forever." I glanced toward the living room. Tom was sitting on the sofa, looking tired. On the table in front of him sat a white birthday cake, candles waiting to be lit, and a vase full of red roses, some petals already beginning to fall. My throat tightened. He had prepared everything. A home celebration, a quiet surprise. And I hadn't shown up. Tom turned his head slowly when he heard me. His eyes were weary, but calm. "I told Lily to sleep," he said quietly. "But she refused. She wanted to wait until her mom came home." I didn't know what to say. I forced a smile, setting Lily down. "Sorry, we got carried away." "Oh, I brought you something, sweetie." I handed her the doll John had bought. She squealed in delight. "It's so pretty," she said, hugging the doll tight. Tom looked at the toy, then at the bouquet still in my hands. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw the doubt flicker there. He didn't say anything. Just sighed softly and asked, "Have you eaten? I can heat up dinner for you." His tone was gentle, too gentle, and that made it worse. I looked toward the kitchen and saw the covered pots on the stove. He had cooked dinner and waited for me, but I had already eaten. Already drunk wine and danced under candlelight with another man. I swallowed hard. "I already ate outside," I said. "Let's just blow out the candles, okay?" He nodded silently, helping Lily light the candles on the cake. 26 tiny flames glowed softly in the dark. "Make a wish," Tom said quietly. I clasped my hands together, closed my eyes. Behind my eyelids, John's face appeared, his smile, his voice, his touch. And before I could stop myself, I whispered in my heart, please? Let John be a part of my life. When I opened my eyes, I was trembling. Tom and Lily were smiling at me, waiting for me to blow the candles. I forced a smile and exhaled. The lights went out, replaced by a faint scent of smoke and frosting. As we sliced the cake, I felt hollow inside. Tom tried to smile, but his eyes were distant. Lily yawned, sleepy and happy, unaware of the storm inside me. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, I lingered by her room for a moment. She was sound asleep, hugging her new blonde doll close to her chest. Her tiny face peaceful. I leaned down and whispered, I'm sorry, baby, before pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. Then I walked back to the master bedroom. Tom was lying on his side, facing the wall, the faint rhythm of his breathing steady but heavy. I slipped under the blanket beside him. Normally, I would feel comfort in his warmth, the familiar weight of his arm pulling me close, but tonight, his touch felt suffocating. When he reached out to hold me, I flinched. I'm tired, I murmured. Please, not tonight. He froze. After a long silence, I heard him sigh quietly, then withdraw his arm. We both turned our backs to each other. Two bodies sharing a bed, but worlds apart. I closed my eyes, but John's face flooded my mind, the way he had looked at me, the warmth of his hand, the sound of his voice whispering near my ear. Even now, I could almost feel his breath against my skin. I bit my lip, my heart pounding wildly. The more I tried to push the image away, the stronger it came back. I wanted him, his attention, his passion, his fire. Something I hadn't felt in years. Tom lay still beside me, perhaps asleep, perhaps pretending. I turned over, restless. The guilt burned inside me like a slow flame. Finally, I got out of bed, grabbing my phone from the nightstand. The clock read 11:45 p.m. Would he still be awake? After a few moments of hesitation, I texted, I can't sleep. Barely 10 seconds passed before my phone lit up with an incoming call. John, heart racing. I slipped quietly out of the bedroom, closing the door behind me. Hello? I whispered, Anna. His deep voice came through, soft but teasing. Can't sleep either? No, I said, leaning against the hallway wall. I just keep thinking about tonight. He chuckled lowly. About me? I hesitated. Then, almost without thinking, I whispered, yes. I miss you. There was silence, then his voice dropped to a husky whisper. I miss you too. So much that I can't breathe right now. My knees went weak. Come see me, he murmured. Just for a while. I just want to hold you. I froze. His words sent a thrill through me, and feared. I looked toward the closed bedroom door. Behind it, Tom and Lily were sleeping peacefully. The image of them felt miles away from the rush inside me now. Sophie's voice suddenly echoed in my head, something she had said weeks ago during lunch at work. Girl, you work in a company full of Western guys. You've got opportunities everywhere. Don't waste your youth being just a wife and mom. At the time, I had laughed it off, thinking she was crazy. But now, her words didn't sound so wild. It had started innocently enough, one slow afternoon in the company cafeteria. I had been staring at my coffee cup, lost in thought, when Sophie plopped down beside me. You look miserable, she said bluntly, stirring her iced latte. What's wrong this time, husband drama or existential crisis? I sighed. I don't know. Everything just feels dull. Every day is the same, wake up, work, pick up Lily, cook dinner, clean, sleep. It's like I'm on autopilot. Sophie raised an eyebrow. You've got a decent job, a husband who doesn't cheat, a cute kid, and your biggest problem is being bored? Girl, some people would kill for that. I know, I admitted quietly. Tom's a good man. But, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I've lost myself. Like I'm just existing, not living. Sophie studied me for a second, then smirked. Ever thought of having a little fun? I frowned. Fun? You know, she said, lowering her voice. Like, dating. A little affair. Something exciting. Nothing serious. I nearly choked on my coffee. You mean cheating? She shrugged. God, such a harsh word. Let's just call it rediscovering your spark. Half the women I know have done it. You'd be shocked. Sophie. I gasped. I'm married. So what? She shot back. Marriage doesn't mean you have to stop feeling alive. When's the last time Tom made your heart race, huh? or looked at you like you were the most beautiful woman in the world. Her words hit me like a slap. Because deep down, I knew she was right. Tom loved me, yes. But romance? Passion? That had died long ago. Our conversations were all about bills, daycare, and schedules. The only physical contact left between us was routine, habit, not desire. Sophie leaned closer, her eyes glinting with mischief. Listen, Anna. You're young. You're gorgeous. Don't waste your best years being invisible. If you ever want to, explore a little, I can introduce you to someone. A good guy. Discreet. Knows how to treat a woman. I had laughed nervously. You're insane. Maybe, she said, sipping her coffee. But I'm happy. I remembered staring at her then, her glowing skin, her effortless smile. She was divorced, living freely, unapologetically. And she looked alive. Meanwhile, I felt like a ghost. Sophie tilted her head, her tone softening. That American guy in your project, the one who keeps looking at you. John, right? My heart skipped a beat. I've seen the way he watches you, she said slyly. Pretty sure he's into you. I had brushed it off, pretending not to care. But after that day, I couldn't help noticing. The glances. The smiles. The little jokes. And soon after, the texts. Sophie's words had planted the first seed. John had watered it. And now, it was in full bloom and back in the present. I stood in the hallway, clutching my phone, John's voice soft in my ear. Come to me, he said again. My heart raced so fast I could barely breathe. Outside, the night was warm and still. The city lights shimmered beyond the window like 1,000 tiny temptations. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was crossing a line I could never uncross. But I couldn't stop myself. Okay, I whispered. I'll come. I hung up, threw on a simple dress, and grabbed a light jacket. Tom was still asleep, or pretending to be. Lily's breathing was soft and even from her room. I opened the front door quietly and stepped into the hallway. The air outside smelled faintly of summer rain. I drove through the empty streets, heart pounding with fear and excitement. Every red light felt like a warning. Every shadow whispered turn back, but I didn't. John was waiting by the gate of his apartment complex. When he saw me, he stepped forward, his arms open. The moment he wrapped me in his embrace, I stopped thinking. He kissed me under the streetlight, deep, hungry, desperate. And I kissed him back. That night, I stopped being a faithful wife. And started being his. From that night on, everything changed. John and I began living in a world of our own, a secret world, hidden beneath the surface of my quiet suburban life. At work, we acted professional, polite greetings, quick eye contact, no one suspecting a thing. But after hours, behind closed doors, we became something else entirely. Every text, every call, every touch burned with desire. He became my escape, my forbidden addiction. During the day, I was still the devoted wife and mother, packing Lily's lunch, cooking dinner, doing laundry, and smiling when Tom got home. But at night, I was someone different, reckless, alive, desired. John often found excuses to keep me close. Sometimes he'd call me into his office to discuss a project. Sometimes he'd ask me to stay late to finalize reports. But behind that locked door, it was never about work. There were moments, stolen and breathless, in the darkened corners of his office, where the only sounds were our hurried whispers and the soft rustle of papers falling to the floor. He was intoxicating. Every time he touched me, I forgot who I was. I knew what we were doing was wrong, sinful, even, but the thrill of it silenced my conscience. It had been so long since I'd felt wanted, adored, seen. John made me feel all of that, and more. One night, after another late meeting, he took me to his apartment near Lake Union. The place was elegant, large windows overlooking the water, shelves of books, faint jazz playing in the background. He poured me a glass of wine, dimmed the lights, and pulled me close. Anna, he whispered, tracing his fingers along my neck, I want you to know something. You're not just another woman to me. You're special. I looked at him, my heart racing. I wanted to believe him. When his lips met mine, I stopped thinking altogether. All I could feel was the heat of his skin, the pressure of his hands, the ache of something both dangerous and beautiful. That night, for the first time, I betrayed Tom completely. The next morning, I came home just before sunrise. Tom was still asleep, his arm draped across the empty side of the bed. I slipped under the blanket, my body still warm from John's embrace. As I stared at the ceiling, a voice inside me whispered, You're a terrible person. But another voice, softer and sweeter, murmured, "You deserve happiness too, for the next few weeks." I lived between those two voices, one calling me guilty, the other alive. At work, rumors began to spread. People noticed that John seemed to favor me. He took me to business trips, invited me to private meetings, and even once dropped me off at work in his car. Sophie was the only one who knew the truth. When I finally confessed, she just grinned and said, "Good for you, girl. You're glowing. I haven't seen you smile like this in years." But behind that smile, my nerves were fraying. Every time Tom asked why I was late, my heart skipped a beat. Every lie came more easily, and each one made me hate myself a little more. Sometimes I'd come home smelling faintly of John's cologne. Tom would wrinkle his brow, like he noticed something, but say nothing. He trusted me. That made it worse. There were moments when I tried to pull away. Once, after a particularly passionate night, I sat on John's couch, crying quietly. "I can't keep doing this," I said. "I have a family." John cupped my face in his hands, his expression gentle. "I know," he said softly. "But I can't lose you either." His words broke me. And just like that, I stayed. The affair went on for months. Every meeting, every message, every kiss deepened the bond between us, and the distance between me and Tom began to notice. He didn't say it out loud, but I saw it in his eyes, the quiet suspicion, the way he watched me when I came home late. He would ask, "Working overtime again?" I would nod, forcing a smile, my stomach twisting in guilt. He'd sigh and say, "Be careful, okay?" And that kindness, his unshaken trust, cut deeper than any accusation ever could. At night, when I lay beside him, his breathing steady and patient, I couldn't sleep. I would stare into the darkness, wondering who I had become. A mother. A wife. And now, a liar. Then came the business trip. A 2-day conference in Portland. John insisted I go as his assistant. Tom didn't object. He even helped me pack. When he hugged me goodbye, he said, "Take care, okay? Call me when you get there." I smiled, kissed him on the cheek, and left. By the time the car crossed the Oregon border, I had already silenced my phone. That night, John and I didn't even pretend to work. We laughed, drank wine, and fell into each other's arms. Outside, the city lights blurred into gold and silver streaks. Inside, there was nothing but us, two people drowning in something that felt like love but was really destruction disguised as passion. By the time we returned to Seattle, I was completely lost. Every time I saw John, I wanted more. Every time I saw Tom, I felt less. I had traded my peace for desire, my family for fire. And deep down, I knew. One day, it would all burn. It happened faster than I expected. All the lies, the late nights, the secret texts, it was only a matter of time before something cracked. Tom had grown quieter over the weeks. He no longer asked where I'd been or why I came home late. He simply looked at me with those tired eyes, the kind that no longer sought answers, only confirmed suspicions. Lily, too, had changed. My little girl used to run to me every evening, squealing, "Mommy's home." Now she only smiled faintly, sometimes not at all. I told myself I was imagining things. That they didn't know. That everything was fine. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was losing them both. One Saturday evening, I told Tom I had to work overtime. In reality, John had invited me to his apartment for dinner. I left before sunset, wearing a new dress John had bought me, a navy blue silk that hugged my body perfectly. That night was intoxicating. We cooked together, drank too much wine, laughed until we forgot the world outside. When I finally returned home, it was almost midnight. The apartment was silent. Usually, Lily would have been asleep in her room. But that night I didn't hear her breathing or the sound of her little night lamp humming. I stepped into the living room and froze. Lily was sitting on the floor, playing tea party with her stuffed animals. In her tiny hands was the old rag doll Tom had given her months ago. On the carpet nearby, abandoned and untouched, was the beautiful blonde doll John had bought for her on my birthday. I bent down, smiling softly. "Sweetheart, why aren't you playing with your new doll?" Lily frowned, her small mouth turning down. "I don't like her," she said, crossing her arms. "She's bad." My heart stopped. For a second, I couldn't breathe. "She's bad? Why, honey?" I asked gently. She looked away, her little voice trembling. "She made Daddy sad." The room went silent. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Slowly, I turned toward the couch and saw Tom sitting there, in the dark. He had been there all along, watching. For a moment, none of us spoke. Tom's face was pale, his eyes cold. "Why does Lily think that doll made me sad?" he asked quietly. I couldn't answer. My throat was dry. "Did you tell her something?" I demanded, panic bubbling up. "How could you talk to her about us?" Tom's voice remained calm, almost too calm. "I didn't say a word to her. But children see more than we think." His words hit harder than any shout. He stood slowly, stepping into the dim light from the kitchen. There was no anger in his expression, just something worse. Disappointment. Pain. Finality. "Tom." I started, but my voice broke. He looked straight at me, his tone even. "I wanted to believe you. Every time you came home late, every time you said you were at work, I told myself I was overthinking. But I'm not stupid, Anna." Tears blurred my vision. "Please, he cut me off, his voice suddenly sharp. "Don't lie anymore." The silence that followed felt endless. When he finally spoke again, his words came out like ice. "Get out." I froze. "What?" "Pack your things," he said. "Leave. I can't look at you right now." I took a step forward, desperate. "Tom, please, I made a mistake." He raised his hand, not to hit me, but to stop me from coming closer. "Don't," he said quietly. "Just don't. You broke something that can't be fixed." Behind him, Lily began to cry. "Mommy, don't go!" she screamed, clutching his leg. The sound tore through me like a knife. I dropped to my knees, sobbing, reaching out to her. "Sweetheart, come here. Come with me." But she shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No. I want to stay with Daddy." Those words shattered me. I had never felt such pain, not even when Tom said he wanted me gone. Hearing my little girl reject me, seeing the fear in her eyes, it broke something inside me forever. I wanted to scream, to run, to take her in my arms. But I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew I deserved it. I stood up slowly, numb, shaking. Tom didn't move. He just stood there, silent, watching me fall apart. I went into the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and began stuffing clothes inside without thinking. Each sound, the zipper, the hangers, the drawers, echoed like thunder in the empty apartment. When I came out, Lily was still crying softly into Tom's shirt. I walked past them, wanting to kiss her one last time. But when I reached out, she flinched and buried her face deeper into her father's chest. My hand dropped to my side. I swallowed the sob that clawed its way up my throat. Tom's voice was barely a whisper. "Goodbye, Anna." I couldn't answer. I just walked out the door. The night air was cold. I pulled my jacket tighter around me as I dragged the suitcase down the quiet street. From a distance, the city lights flickered like tiny broken stars. Outside the building, the old woman who sold coffee every morning glanced up as I passed. She shook her head and muttered, "Some people don't realize what they have until it's gone." Her words cut deeper than she could ever know. By the time I reached the main road, tears were streaming down my face. I stopped under a streetlight, trembling, and took out my phone. There was only one person I could think to call, John. He picked up after a few rings, his voice groggy. "Anna? What's wrong?" Through sobs, I told him everything, how Tom found out, how Lily cried, how I had nowhere to go. There was a pause on the line. Then John sighed softly. "Okay. Maybe it's for the best. You can stay with your parents for a while, right? We'll figure things out later." I froze. "My parents?" I repeated, confused. "Not with you, Anna," he said gently, almost impatiently. "It's just complicated. You know how it would look if you stayed here right now. Let's just take a little time, okay?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. The silence between us felt endless. I realized then that I had destroyed my family for a man who wasn't even willing to open his door. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll go to my parents." "Good," he said quickly. "Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow." Then the line went dead. The street was empty again. I stood there, clutching my phone, listening to the dial tone fade into nothing. For the first time, I felt completely alone. I looked up at the night sky, dark, endless, indifferent, and whispered, "What have I done?" Then, dragging my suitcase behind me, I started walking. The city swallowed me whole. The taxi dropped me off at my parents' house just before dawn. The street was still half asleep, shrouded in fog. The house looked exactly the same as it always had, small, worn, but warm. My mother opened the door in her nightgown, her eyes widening when she saw me standing there with a suitcase. Anna. She whispered. What's wrong? I didn't answer. I just burst into tears and fell into her arms. She didn't ask questions. She simply held me, her hands trembling, and whispered, It's okay, my child. Whatever it is, you're home now. For the next few days, I barely left my old room. The walls were still covered with posters from my college days. It felt like stepping back into the life of a girl who had once dreamed of happiness. Before she learned how easily happiness could break, Mom tried to coax me to eat. But most of the time I just stared out the window, waiting for a call that never came. John didn't message me. Not that day. Not the next. Not even a week later. I texted him several times, simple, desperate things. Are you okay? Can we talk? Please answer me. Nothing. Finally, after nearly 2 weeks of silence, he replied. A single line, I think we should take a break. It's better for both of us. That was all. I read it over and over again until the words blurred. Take a break. Like we were just coworkers pausing a project, not two people whose lives had intertwined so deeply. I called him, once, twice, 10 times. No answer. He was gone, just like that. The man who had made me feel alive vanished as easily as he had entered my life. I sat there, phone in hand, realizing how naive I had been. John had never promised me forever. I was the one who built that illusion. I had gambled my marriage, my family, my daughter, everything, for a fantasy that dissolved the moment reality intruded. Mom eventually learned the truth. She didn't yell, didn't scold. She just looked at me with quiet sadness and said, I warned you once, Anna. Love built on someone else's tears never lasts. Her words stayed with me. Every night, I replayed that last evening with Tom and Lily, the doll, the tears, the way my little girl hid in her father's arms. That image haunted me more than anything. I tried calling Tom, but he didn't pick up. Once, I left a message, whispering through tears, Tom, I'm sorry. Please. Just let me see Lily. I miss her so much. No reply. Weeks turned into months. I returned to work, but everything felt different. John had transferred to another branch, supposedly for project realignment. Sophie said he'd started seeing someone new, a marketing consultant from Los Angeles. I didn't react. I had no energy left to feel anything. One rainy afternoon, as I left the office, I passed a small park near the street corner. A little girl, around Lily's age, was laughing as she chased pigeons. Her father was filming her, smiling from ear to ear. For a moment, I stood frozen, the scene stabbing through me like a blade. I could almost see us, Tom, Lily, and me, as we once were. Before the lies. Before everything fell apart. A sob escaped my throat. I turned away quickly, covering my face with my hand as the rain poured harder. It was as if the sky itself was mourning everything I had destroyed. That night, back in my empty apartment, I took out the few photos I had left, Tom holding Lily on her first birthday. Our trip to the zoo. The three of us at the beach, laughing in the sunlight. Each picture felt like a wound that would never close. I realized something then, something simple, but cruelly clear. John had given me passion, yes. But Tom had given me love. Real love. The kind that endures when the spark fades, when the days grow long and dull. And I had thrown it away for a man who didn't even stay long enough to say goodbye. The next morning, I packed my things and went to visit Lily's school. I waited by the gate until I saw her coming out with her backpack. She froze when she saw me. Her big brown eyes widened, a mix of confusion and hurt. I knelt down, tears already burning my eyes. Så tärt, whispered. Mommy missed you so much. She didn't move. She just looked at me, clutching her bag tightly. Daddy said you're busy, she said quietly. I nodded, biting back a sob. Yeah, Mommy's been busy. But I want to see you, okay? She hesitated, then glanced toward the parking lot. Tom was standing by the car, watching us. Our eyes met for the first time in months. There was no anger in his gaze, only sadness. A sadness too deep for words. I stood up slowly, wiping my face. Take care of her, I said softly. He nodded once. Then he opened the car door. And Lily climbed inside. As the car pulled away, I stood there alone, watching until it disappeared into traffic. That night, I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done in years. Maybe one day, Tom will forgive me. Maybe one day, Lily will understand. But even if they never do, I'll keep trying to be better than the woman I became. Because love, real love, isn't found in the arms of someone new. It's in the family I lost. And the lessons I'll never forget. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and for the first time in months, I slept without dreaming. 5 years passed, Seattle changed, new buildings, new streets, new faces, but the rain stayed the same. It still fell softly in the mornings, washing the city in silver. And every time I heard it, I was reminded of that night I left home with nothing but a suitcase and regret. I was 31 now. Older, quieter. No longer the reckless woman chasing the thrill of being desired. I had learned how easily desire fades, and how long guilt lingers. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up. A small job at a local bookstore. A quiet apartment overlooking the lake. No romance, no lies, just silence and honesty. Some nights, I would sit by the window, reading while the rain tapped against the glass. And though loneliness sometimes crept in, it was different now, gentler, almost peaceful. I hadn't seen Tom or Lily in years. At first, I stayed away out of shame. Then out of respect. He deserved peace, and she deserved a childhood untainted by my shadow, but I never stopped thinking about them. Not one day, every birthday, I sent a card. No message, no signature, just a simple white card with a small drawing of a heart. I didn't know if Tom ever showed them to her. I just hoped he did. One gray afternoon, while arranging books on a shelf, I looked up and froze. Tom was standing at the counter. He looked different, older, broader, with faint streaks of gray in his hair. But those same calm eyes still held the quiet strength I remembered. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the soft jazz playing in the store. "Hi," I finally whispered. "Hi," he said gently. There was no anger in his voice, only something softer, deeper. "I didn't think you'd ever want to see me again," I said. He gave a small, tired smile. "I wasn't sure I did. But Lily wanted to stop by." My heart nearly stopped. Then I saw her, standing by the door, taller now, maybe 10 or 11. She was holding a book in her hands, half hiding behind her father's coat. "Hi, sweetheart," I said softly. She hesitated, then stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Hi, Mom." The word mom hit me like a wave. My eyes filled instantly with tears. She smiled shyly, then handed me the book she'd been holding. "It's for you," she said. I took it, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. "My favorite book from when I was her age." "You remembered," I whispered. "Daddy told me," she said. "He said you used to read it to me when I was little." Tom nodded slightly. "She's been asking about you for a while now." I thought, maybe it was time. We sat together in the corner cafe next to the bookstore. Lily sipped her hot chocolate while Tom and I talked quietly. He told me he was doing fine, still working at the same engineering firm, still living in the same house. He never remarried. "Why?" I asked softly. "You're a good man, Tom. You deserved someone better than me." He looked out the window for a long time before answering. "I don't know. Maybe part of me was too afraid to start over. Or maybe part of me still hoped you'd find your way back." Tears welled up again. "I don't deserve that kind of forgiveness." He shook his head gently. "It's not about deserving. It's about letting go. For me, for Lily, and for you." When we finished our drinks, Lily tugged on my sleeve. "Mom, can we go to the park before we go home?" My breath caught at the sound of that word again, Mom. I smiled through tears. "Of course, sweetheart." The three of us walked together to the small park nearby. Lily ran ahead, laughing as she chased the pigeons, just like she used to. Tom and I sat on the bench, watching her. For a moment, it almost felt like the past had folded back on itself, giving me one last glimpse of what once was. "She's beautiful," I said softly. He smiled. "She gets that from her mother." I turned to look at him, really look. The years had changed us both, but something between us had quietly survived. Not love the way it once was, but something deeper, understanding. "Thank you," I whispered. "For taking care of her. For everything." He didn't reply right away. Then he said, "We all make mistakes, Anna. What matters is what we learn from them." He stood, called out to Lily, and she ran to him. As they turned to go, Lily looked back and waved. "Bye, Mom. I'll visit again soon." I waved back, my heart aching and full all at once. That evening, after closing the bookstore, I walked to the lake. The sun was setting, turning the water golden crimson. For the first time in years, I didn't feel broken. Just human. I took a deep breath and whispered into the quiet air, "Thank you, Tom, for forgiving me. And thank you, Lily, for still calling me Mom." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. And in that moment, under the fading light, I finally let the past go. A new day, a new beginning. Lily often visited now, on weekends, sometimes with Tom. We'd walk by the lake, read books together, bake cookies. It wasn't the same family as before, but it was still love, a quieter, steadier kind. I had learned that forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It simply allows you to keep living, and as the Seattle rain began to fall once more, I smiled. Because for the first time in a very long while, I was at peace.